Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I have a terrible cold, as you might imagine by the sound of my voice, but I thought I would do a quick video today coming out of my semi-retirement from YouTube to pay tribute to a man that could be fairly considered the grandfather of gaming, video, and internet culture, TotalBiscuit. For those that may not have heard, and I'm sure that anybody involved in the gaming community has, TotalBiscuit has succumbed to his cancer and passed away as of May 24th, 2018. And my relationship with TotalBiscuit streams way back to the early 2000s, in the early days of World of Warcraft, when TotalBiscuit was on WoWRadio. I was a huge fan of his show Blue Please, and he had gone on to do a couple other projects on the WoWRadio programs, including one called On the Cards. And when I heard this show, let's give you some background on it. On the Cards was a show that was dedicated to the World of Warcraft trading card game. So if you don't know, there was, at least at one point, I'm not sure if there is anymore, a trading card game based upon World of Warcraft. And, it was a paper-based game, so you couldn't really cast it. It wasn't like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering online or something like that you could take a video of it and put it online. And back in those days, the longest video you could have on the internet was probably about 5 minutes anyway, and this was long-form content. So WoWRadio guys would have two people play on a program called Octagon, which was kind of a pirate program for card games. You could input cards and play, and it had some functions to it. It was very basic, though. So what they did is they had two people play, and they would cast it play by play. A card game is very difficult to imagine what was going on, very hard to keep track of the board. So when I heard this, I thought to myself, I can do this graphically. And I sat down one weekend and I listened to an On the Cards show, and I constructed in Photoshop a series of images that would animate the game that they were casting. I emailed this to TotalBiscuit, and he was blown away by it, and he wanted me to do more of these for each of their episodes. The problem was, obviously, since it wasn't a program, it was just images that I made, it took me about 35 hours per show, and I said, there's no way I can do it. This is a one-off. In any event, I've never released the footage of this. This is incredibly old. I'm guessing 13 years old at this point, so the quality is not good, but you are getting the exclusive, first time ever seen graphical overlay of On the Cards show that was on WoWRadio back in the day. In any event, before I put the video on, I just want to say that, while TotalBiscuit in his later years was a bit of a controversial figure in the gaming community, especially surrounding the Gamergate controversies, I think it would be fair to say, and I think if you're being honest with yourself, you would have to admit that he was essentially the pioneer of gaming critics on the internet and gaming content on YouTube, for that matter. His production value, even way back in the day, in the Blue Please days, was beyond anything that anyone was doing at the time. We all owe a great credit to him for breaking ground in that respect, and he will be missed in the community for sure. So without further ado, I'm presenting to you the graphical display, I guess, of the On the Cards show that aired on WoWRadio back in the day. Enjoy. Wait, before I do that though, the Blue Please had an intro that I always loved listening to this intro. I could recite it word for word, and I thought I would share this with you before the video. Back in the day, intros were really long. They weren't the 3-second splashes that you get on YouTube videos nowadays. People had patience for intros. I don't know why. Intros are annoying. But anyway, this is an epic intro. No pun intended. But the Blue Please intro, I'm going to play it for you right now, right before the video. if you don't want to listen to it, skip ahead a minute and a half or so and get to the content. But I absolutely loved this intro, and I thought I would share it with you one last time in honor of TotalBiscuit.
And so, it begins. Dark were the skies, and chill was the wind, as the land was covered in a veil of malice. Across the hill did ride a dread army of the night, cloaked in mist and fog, prepared to rain down death and destruction upon the land. And the people did crowd for a savior, a noble soul to save them from their impending demise. Just as it seemed all was lost, in strode a mighty hero, clad in shimmering metal from head to toe. Wielding a terrible broadsword, he did cleave his foes in two, smashing their ranks asunder with righteous fury. And when the day was done and the enemy strewn across the fields in pieces, the people did turn to the warrior and say, "We shall name this day in your honor. Speak unto us your wisdom." The warrior said one word that day: epic.
One man, one Murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Please. It begins now. Yes, indeed, folks, you're tuned into WoWRadio. This is On the Cards, the WoW TCG edition with myself, TotalBiscuit.
And myself, Octale.
Yes, indeed, and we have a very special show for you tonight. On the Cards being a WoW TCG play-by-play commentary style show in which we take two willing combatants, throw them in an arena with each other, and see them rip each other's limbs off for our amusement.
It is the virtual Thunderdome, as it were.
That's exactly what it is. Exactly what it is. Those not familiar with the WoW TCG, you should probably check out Uberdeck.com, have a look. It is the World of Warcraft trading card game, pretty much stating the obvious right there. It is a card game based around the idea of having a hero in play, which has its own unique class abilities, and using allies, equipment, and quests in order to strike at your opponent and bring his life total down to 0.
That it is.
So without further ado, we will start by covering the basic strategies of these players here tonight. We have Hordak and Wrathy, who will be facing off with very, very different decks indeed. Hordak playing with a 75 card Horde Enhancement Shaman basic equipment Wind Fury beatdown deck, which, to put it bluntly, is get a weapon, get Wind Fury out, hit the opponent many, many times indeed in the space of a single turn.
That should be very, very powerful, I would think, considering the nature of kind of a one swing per turn paradigm that other heroes are saddled with.
That's very, very true. The Shaman, of course, has multiple ways, especially now the Dark Portal being released, of striking multiple times in a turn. He has Storm Strikes in his deck, which will allow him to ready a melee weapon. His Flip also allows him to ready a melee weapon, and he does have the Wind Fury weapon ability in his deck, which will of course allow him to strike twice per turn. He also seems to be packing multiple weapons which are no cost to swing, as well as a few very basic defensive only allies and some very nasty equipment, which should hopefully do the job.
Absolutely. On the other side, Wrathy's packing an Arms Warrior Gorebelly.
Indeed, his strategy, he specifically says it's an Warrior Arms deck. My strategy is to get weapons buffs, buff them up with equipment and abilities, using as many fetch weapon cards as I can and cards that allow to strike more than once per turn. He will use allies and abilities to hinder my opponent to get me into mid-game where he can play his bigger weapons. So it looks to me like Hordak playing a very aggressive, perhaps an early game deck that he can get straight out and do a little bit of damage early on, but looks like Wrathy's playing the delaying tactic in order to get out the big hitters later on in game.
Yeah, we'll have to see how those two contrasting styles interact with each other. It should be a very good game indeed.
Very brutal, I think, is possibly the word that I would use. And we're going to go flip and call, and we're going to ask Wrathy to call heads or tails to see who goes first in this game. And we've got a tails right there. Wrathy is allowed to go first or second, of course each presenting its own unique tactical advantage. Wrathy deciding to go second, and we have 7-card draw from both sides. Let's overview the hands and see what we've got. Just to recap, Gorebelly the Arms Warrior has 30 life, and Haruka Skycaller has 28 life, with Hordak having a starting hand of a Rockbiter weapon, an Annihilator, a Healing Stream Totem, a Purge, a Shattering Blow, and 2 Big Game Hunter quests, which means that he can play everything bar 1 card in his hand, so very nice starting hand for him there. Rathi with something more of a mixed hand. He's got a Lionheart Helm, an Overseer Oil Fist, a Windseer Taurus, a Fatafia, Rax, Sky Fury, Stronghold Gauntlets, and a true Silver Champion.
Well...
yeah, and Big Game Hunter into play as a quest. Of course, that's the only quest Hordak currently has access to. He's just pulled a Ghost Wolf, which is a very useful card that allows you to avoid strikes from allies. And he's passing straight over to Rathi, who has just pulled a card from his library. He's just pulled the Death Dealer Breastplate. We know Rathi plays a very equipment-heavy Warriors deck, but it's all high-cost stuff. We're looking at stuff like the True Silver Champion and the Death Dealer Breastplate requiring 5 resources in play, which is going to take a little bit of work, although Hordak doesn't actually have any weapons available right now, so he's not going to be putting out too much damage yet. And we've got Fatafi going face down as a resource. Not entirely surprising. It's a 6-cost ally. It's no use right now to him whatsoever, and it's more than likely being a common card. He's got quite a few in his deck, so he slapped that one face down as a resource. He doesn't have any quests whatsoever. As you're well aware, in the WoW TCG, you can in fact pick any card and slap it down face down as a resource, which gives you a little bit of tactical flexibility to get rid of cards you don't really need.
Yep, absolutely.
So he's got that one down, but he's got nothing he can really do aside from play Rax Sky Fury, which he may do for a little bit of an early game advantage. I certainly would do it. There's no real reason not to at this point in time.
Absolutely, yeah, and I would press as much as possible, especially if Hordak's deck is as quick as you say it is.
Well, one would imagine it is. Hordak's deck does seem to be very much designed for a little bit of early game damage. He's got his first weapon out, but it is an expensive one. It's the Cruel Hand of Timmy, a very, very unpleasant weapon to Wind Fury with, because every time it attacks, it forces a resource destruction.
That would be a very, very important weapon to get into play as early as possible. Hampering Rathi's resources would very definitely keep things in Hordak's favor, for sure.
Very much indeed. I would hope that Rathi does have the ability to deal with that. The Annihilator just going straight into play there. That's his first weapon straight into play. Very good indeed. He also has a Rockbiter weapon, which he could attach next turn to make the Annihilator strike for 5 with only a 2 swing cost. That's an exceedingly good early game advantage.
That's very, very efficient and a good weapon buff combo to get into play as early as it appears Hordak's going to get it into play.
Absolutely. Now, we've got to consider also that combat damage dealt by your hero with Annihilator cannot be prevented. It means go straight through armor.
Yeah, that's important too, especially with an item-heavy deck.
Yep, and we've got a Vanquish there by Rathi, which is not really going to help him whatsoever. There are no allies in Hordak's hand right now. Rathi not looking in too good a position at this point in time. He's going to have to play something face down, and I would certainly be playing the Vanquish there if he was getting a feel of Hordak's deck just yet. If he did that, he could play Overseer Oil Fist, or he could get Rax Sky Fury into play, but he's still lacking the ability to play any equipment whatsoever early on, and he's going to get some pain next turn, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. He is going to get some pain next turn for sure, and it is going to be incumbent on him to get as much in the way as possible until he can get the resources to play some items.
No question about that. Card going face down as a resource. It didn't put Vanquish down though, which was quite interesting. He put down one of his higher cost cards, perhaps a little bit less useful. He's paying 2, which looks like an Overseer Oil Fist going into play, I would imagine. Yep, Overseer Oil Fist going to play. That's one of the new Dark Portal cards. It's actually a neutral ally. When Overseer Oil Fist enters play, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. Put a revealed equipment card into your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your deck.
That's a very interesting card. I guess it will get Rathi some more cards in hand that he can turn around and drop for resources. I don't know. It seems to me that, okay, let's see. In the 4 revealed cards, there's a Myrmidon Signet, a Crawl Blade, and an Edge Master's Handguards. So
I'd be pulling the Crawl Blade. To be brutally honest with you, I would definitely be pulling the Crawl Blade because it's a very, very nice weapon for early game. Only 3 to play and only 1 to strike, but 3 damage.
Yes, and another very efficient weapon.
Which is exactly what it's done. It does mean he's forgone the Murmured Signet, the Edge Masters. The Edge Masters not being too useful at this point in time. He has, and this is going to hurt him a little bit, just forgone a Crushing Blow, which is, of course, destroy target armor, or destroy target weapon, or both.
Yeah, anytime you lose a card like that against an item-heavy deck, it's not good. That's for sure.
It's not really going to get him very far at all. So that's going to get straight dumped back down to the bottom of his library, and there's not an awful lot he can do about that whatsoever. Except, of course, hope for a little bit of an item shuffle and see whether or not his deck decides to be kind to him. Okay, with that card going to the bottom of the deck and no resources available, of course, Overseer Oil Fist not able to do anything in his first turn of play. It hands over to Hordak. He's unexhausting both of his quest resources, and we're looking for a card draw at the moment. Let's see what he manages to pull here. There's a Lightning Shield, which is going to be very, very unpleasant. Lightning Shield, one of the new Dark Portal cards, basically has 3 charges, and anytime you get struck, it deals 2 nature damage directly to the person that just struck you.
That's a very good defensive card.
It's actually quite a nice offensive card as well if you combo it up with the Storm Strike, which, as you're well aware, is a 1-cost instant ability which allows you specifically to throw the Storm Strike on, ready a melee weapon, and the next source of nature damage played in that turn does an additional 2 nature damage. So you're looking at 4 damage per Lightning Shield if you throw a Storm Strike out at the right time.
That is an excellent combination.
We're looking at a 2-play here. Could be Ghost Wolf or Rockbiter. If I was him, I'd be putting Rockbiter or maybe going for a swing. We'll see what we can do. A bit of early damage certainly wouldn't go amiss with this one.
Looks like he completed Big Game Hunter.
That was a very interesting decision. Probably not something I would have done. He was trying to get more equipment into his hand, and all he's ended up doing is throwing away a few rather useful abilities, including a Lightning Shield, a Healing Wave, and a Purge. Well, the Blue Leaf Tubers, as well as a quest, not particularly useful, but never mind. So he's got nothing there, and he's throwing them straight back to the bottom of his library. A little bit of a waste, in my opinion. I would have gone for the swing first, got a little bit of early damage in, or perhaps killed Overseer Oil Fist, which he could have done.
Yeah, potentially either one of those would have been good. We'll have to see what he does in subsequent turns.
And with very little that Hordak can really do right now, he's handing his turn straight back over to Wrathy, who right now has just pulled a card into his hand. We'll see what he's got there. He really does need to start getting some stuff out. Of course, he's got his Kroll Blade, and he's just pulled a Burn Away, which is not really going to help at this point in time, although it will be quite helpful to get rid of Rockbiter if that's the next thing the Hordak plays, which is predictable, to say the least. As you're probably well aware, Burn Away is a card which will get rid of an ability that also counts against totems, which can be targeted in the same way as an ability or an ally. Wrathy's still suffering due to lack of quests. He's going to have to get rid of something. Certainly, I would be getting rid of Vanquish or one of his higher cost cards right now. I can understand why he wouldn't want to get rid of his Champion. That's his primary damage-dealing weapon, and a very unpleasant weapon indeed, because it does actually absorb damage struck back to him that turn, and he's gone with something face down. And it looks like he's decided to dump his Windseer Taurus. So he's not looking for allies right now. He's playing 3. One would imagine that the Kroll Blade is going straight into play right now. That's exactly what he's doing. Kroll Blade being a 3-cost sword. It's a one-hander. 3 damage and only 1 cost to strike. Very efficient card. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
And swinging with Overseer Oil Fist.
Overseer Oil Fist being first blood of the game. Hordak down to 27 life. Now, Hordak's just pulled one of the brand new abilities for the Dark Portal. It's actually an Orc-specific ability called Blood Fury. You pay 4 plus X, and the X is basically a number of counters, and for every counter that goes on the hero this turn, that's an extra +1 attack. So very, very useful later game when you can save up a lot of resources and nuke for a huge attack. Great for Wind Furying as well.
Yes, damage like that in a hero weapon ready weapon type deck like this one is definitely very, very good.
It's a very, very nasty combination indeed. However, he's putting it face down as a resource, perhaps a rather fatal move on his part. We'll see what happens. Now, he's got a number of options here. He could go for a Rockbiter and a Strike, which would do 5 damage directly to Gorebelly, and there's nothing he could do about it. He's tapping 2 Rockbiter going on the Annihilator. Rockbiter is an ability. It's an instant ability enchantment. It enchants the attached weapon with +2 attack, and the hero is then given Protector, meaning his Annihilator will strike for 5 damage that cannot in fact be prevented.
Yep, that's going to be a big, big early turn hit.
Which is exactly what he's about to do. He's tapping 2 resources, Annihilator going for a swing on Gorebelly, taking him down to 25. That's a big chunk of health this early in the game.
And even with Wrathy's ally plus the Kroll Blade, he still can't swing for enough eventually Hordak will overcome that, and if they trade blows for the rest of the game, it's going to be Hordak that comes out on top.
It's going to be Hordak with a win, absolutely. But Wrathy does have a burn away in his hand, and he may choose to simply get rid of that Rockbiter weapon, although I'd imagine there's more where that came from with a Hordak enhancement deck. Well, let's have a look at that, and he is tapping 1, 2, 3, looking like possibly a burn away on the Rockbiter. Burn away straight on the Rockbiter. Rockbiter is out of play. Oh well, a little bit of an early game advantage, but it doesn't last too long in this kind of scenario. Burn away, an exceedingly common card, as you're well aware, but commons can sometimes be the most useful.
Absolutely, and a 3-point swing with the Kroll Blade, and another damage from Overseer Oil Fist for 4 total.
Taking Hordak slightly below Wrathy's total, with a grand total of 23 at this point in time. Of course, Wrathy's sitting on a slight advantage right now. He is building up the cards he needs. Death Dealer Breastplate could come into play next turn. True Silver Champion could come into play next turn. Personally, I would go with Death Dealer. That's +2 attack on the Kroll Blade, which would make it a 5 attack and 1 swing cost. That is deadly.
Yeah, that would make it exceedingly efficient and would be very advantageous.
Indeed. Felt Iron Hatchet, one of the new Dark Portal cards, just been pulled into Hordak's hand. A very useful Wind Fury weapon, in fact. Cruel Hand of Timmy going face down as a resource. A critical error, in my honest opinion. I'd definitely be playing the Cruel Hand of Timmy right now to destroy some of Wrathy's resources so that he couldn't do anything about pulling some of those higher cost equipment cards onto his hero. However, that is not to be. The Cruel Hand of Timmy has gone face down. Hordak has 5 resources in play. The Fell Iron Hatchet, of course, is a 0 strike cost weapon. It does 2 damage, great for Wind Furying. Again, it means that the hero can strike every turn regardless of whether or not he has any resources in play. He may choose to go with that, but I would imagine that he probably will not. He could use a Shattering Blow to eliminate the Kroll Blade, although I'd imagine True Silver Champion will come into play next turn, so that's not going to make much difference whatsoever. If I were him, I'd actually putting a Lightning Shield on, maybe to discourage Wrathy from attacking in the first place. Although in this case, looks like he's not going to do that. He's striking with the Annihilator for a total of 3 damage, taking Wrathy down to 22. And he's completing Big Game Hunter for his end-of-term action, looking through the top 4 cards of his library for an equipment card, possibly looking for a little bit of armor or maybe a better weapon. We'll see what he can pull. There's a Blood Fury, a Guardian Step Strider, a Storm Strike, and a Shattering Blow. Completely and totally useless, and that really isn't going to get him very far at all.
No, but what it is doing is stripping those cards that are non-equipment cards off of his deck and getting him into back elsewhere at his library so that he can perhaps draw some other equipment or other items, anything, to help him in some way.
Yeah, indeed, that is a possibility. However, he has just forgotten one of the amazing strengths of his deck. That's a Storm Strike Lightning Shield combination. Basically, the idea is you take your Storm Strike, you throw down your Lightning Shield, and you use your Storm Strike to ready your hero and one of your melee weapons. You swing again, and in a combat, specifically where you are responding to the attack of an enemy hero, you can deal 4 damage with the Lightning Shield instead of 2 due to the special additional effect of a Storm Strike. What we also have to bear in mind here is the Guardian Step Strider, an upgraded version of Guardian Steelhorn introduced in the Dark Portal expansion, is a 5/5 protector which cannot attack. That is definitely something that would put Wrathy off a strike, because that is a lot of damage to be dealt back, and Wrathy at this point in time could of course not kill that character in a single turn, so we would be looking at around 10 possible damage to his hero if you went anywhere near it. But it looks like that one's not to be, and Hordak can only hope that he's going to be pulling another one sometime soon.
Yep, that's exactly right. It looks like we are going to get a trading of fisticuffs for the next couple of turns, and we shall see who comes out on top.
Which is what you would think, except for the fact that Wrathy's just pulled a Mortal Strike, a very dangerous ability for this particular deck. Whether or not Wrathy's going to choose to dump something, which I would quite frankly, I'd just take Rat Sky Fury and dump him down. No one really cares. It's a hero-heavy centric deck. Rat Sky Fury is going to do very little at the moment. If I were him, I'd be dumping that face down and putting a Death Dealer Breastplate straight into play. Even though he wouldn't be able to swing with his Kroll this turn, he's looking at a potential of 5 damage, 6 damage a turn if you count Overseer Oil Fist. Yeah, I'd definitely go with that one, to be brutally honest with you. He's done something face down as a resource, so he could play the True Silver Champion, or he could play the Death Dealer. but he's doing neither and putting the Stronghold Gauntlets into play. Stronghold Gauntlets, as you may be aware, they only absorb 1 damage. However, all your weapons have +1 attack and cannot be targeted by opponents, which means that any weapon destruction that Hordak may have had in mind has gone straight out the window.
Yes, and he can still swing with a Kroll Blade for 4. So we've added some efficiency to the Kroll Blade, which is good.
Yep, that's absolutely a fantastic idea there. Hordak does have a Shattering Blow in his hand. Not even 2 ways about it. Hordak has just taken a grand total of 3 damage, taking him down to 19. Overseer Oil Fist going in for an 18 right there. Hordak not looking too healthy at this point in time. It's definitely a shame that he lost a healing wave early on to a bad card draw.
Yes, absolutely.
So Hordak looking at his state of play right now, he has a hand with a Fell Iron Hatchet, a Lightning Shield, a Ghost Wolf, a Shattering Blow, Purge, and just pulled a Storm Strike. So we're hopefully looking for a Storm Strike Lightning Shield combination if he's smart enough to pull it off. He's got 5 resources face down, Wrathy with a hand of Immortal Strike, Death Dealer Breastplate, Rack Sky Fury, and a True Silver Champion with a very nice Stronghold Gauntlet and Kroll Blade combination. Ghost Wolf going into play. That's an ongoing ability, exhaust your hero. If your hero is defending, remove all attacking allies from combat. That of course will only apply to Overseer Oil Fist, not Gorebelly. So it will reduce 1 damage per turn, assuming he actually wants to exhaust his hero and able to do it.
He played it face down as a resource.
That he did, which is a very, very sensible thing to do. I did think he was going mad there for a moment, but looks like he does know what he's doing. So that strike going straight through. The damage, of course, cannot be prevented. The Stronghold Gauntlets will not help at all. Storm Strike going in. It's a Storm Strike. Readies his abilities. He's readying his hero and his Annihilator as a result of the Storm Strike play, and probably going for another strike right now. Yep, he's doing that, which is one of the strengths of this deck. No two ways about that. It's a strike for an additional 3 going straight through the armor. This damage cannot be prevented. That's the Contest Annihilator, taking Wrathy down to a very unhealthy 16. I definitely don't believe he saw that one coming. Okay, so perhaps the table's being turned on Wrathy, but that, to be fair, was something of a one-trick ponies, and Hordak really cannot rely on pulling too many more of those, especially when we know one of them went straight to the bottom of his deck, and you can only have a maximum of 4 in your deck as a whole. Wrathy on a grand total of 16 life. He's just pulled a Rend, which could actually be quite helpful. It seems like a very weak card, but it's a basic bleed effect. And of course his response to that is to put it straight down as a resource. Obviously he does not care in the slightest for it. So what's he got? A Mortal Strike, a Death Dealer Breastplate, a Rack Sky Fury, and a True Silver Champion. I expect the Death Dealer Breastplate to go into play. To be brutally honest, that would leave him with 1 resource to strike, and it would be doing a grand total of 6 damage per swing.
Yeah, that would be a big play if he makes it.
And to be fair, I expect him to. I do not even see any other possibility.
Oh, he swung with the Kroll Blade first for 4.
Why he did that, I will never know, unless he's got something else up his sleeve, and I can't see anything in his hand that he could do. What's he playing at? He's playing Rack Sky Fury. Oh, nasty. When Rack Sky Fury enters play, ready your hero and one of your weapons. I see what he did there. He's just swung for 4. He's played his Rack Sky Fury, readied it again and hit for another 4. It's the warrior equivalent of Wind Fury right there, taking Hordak down to 10.
Yep, that's exactly right. That was a big combat round. 9 damage all told, plus the Overseer Oil Fist. So yeah, that's a huge combat round.
Yep, that was a very nice combination that, to be fair, I'll admit I did not see coming a mile off. I was expecting something a little bit more traditional, maybe Death Dealer Breastplate Strike, but no, that has more damage potential right there. Hordak bleeding badly on 9. We're looking at a possible 2-turn win here from Wrathy.
Yeah, that we are.
Hordak Shattering Blow straight out in the Stronghold Gauntlets, taking them out of play at this point in time, unless Wrathy can do something, which I believe he cannot. There we go, Stronghold Gauntlets are out of play. The Kroll Blade is now vulnerable. Of course, he's now only dealing 3 damage swing.
And we'll give Hordak a little bit more time to mount some more impressive offense.
Completing Big Game Hunter once again, and he has pulled Scarlet Chris, which is not going to help him at all at this point in time. Scarlet Chris, very much an early game weapon. It's a 1 damage, 0 strike cost weapon. Great for early Wind Furying, but pretty much not much else. He's pulled it into his hand since he's really got nothing better to do at this point in time. I would have gone for the swing. He didn't, and really that is his own problem.
Yeah, it's getting very close to the end, I'm afraid. We will see another Kroll Blade Oil Fist combination, I believe. Yeah, some Rack Sky Fury for flavor.
Rathi pulled a very interesting card right there. It's a new weapon. It's called the Scimitar of the Nexus, I believe. And I can't really see him using it, to be quite honest with you. The Crawl Blade is certainly doing its job right now, but we'll see what he decides.
Yeah, I can't imagine we're going to see that item into play at all.
No, to be fair, I think we're looking at, Nexus straight down as a resource, which gives him a grand total of 7. I think we're looking at a Death Dealer Breastplate, possibly Mortal Strike.
And that, I think, would come very, very close to doing it, would it not?
I believe it possibly would. Let's see what he plans on doing here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 resources. It's definitely a Death Dealer coming into play right now. That's, of course, an armor piece which gives +2 attack. Death Dealer Breastplate right now in play. All your weapons have +2 attack, meaning the Crawl Blade is striking for 5. And it can get a grand total of 6 and 7 if he uses both of his allies. He's still got 2 resources left in play. Possibility of a Mortal Strike, perhaps?
Yes.
Or you may just go for a traditional swing. You've got to bear in mind that he cannot do both. Alternatively, he could just complete his big game hunter. We'll see what he's going to do. He's very much got control of the table right now. Hordak, unless he pulls something big next turn, is not going to get out of this situation.
No, but unless we see something catastrophic on Hordak's next turn, this one is in fact over.
Rack Sky Fury going in for a basic attack of 1 on Hordak, bringing him down to 8, and we're possibly looking for an Oil Fist attack right there as well. One would imagine that he would. There's no reason not to. Deal the additional damage and then strike with the Crawl Blade for 6, taking Hordak down to a very unpleasant 1.
There goes Oil Fist.
Oil Fist in for 1, taking Hordak down to 7. We're looking for a swing from the Crawl Blade. That's, of course, going to happen, one would think. And see what Rathi's trying to do here. He would have loved to go for a swing and a Mortal Strike for a kill, but he's not going to be able to do that. So he's looking at a Crawl Swing, taking Hordak down to 1. It's definitely a one-turn kill scenario. Hordak is not going to be able to do anything, quite frankly, as far as I can see. There's not much you can do between a 1 life and 16 life scenario, no matter what card you pull.
Yeah, it's going to take a significant number of comboed abilities to overcome that life deficit, and
unfortunately, the Sunken Treasure quest is not a combo ability.
No, it's not.
At least still meaning he'll have 8 resources in play, which would allow him to play a Lightning Shield, which of course will do absolutely nothing. Or a Feline Hatchet, which would of course also do absolutely nothing. A Scarlet Crisp, which would be completely and totally worthless. And a Purge, which can't target anything in play right now. So Hordak is unceremoniously dead. There is really nothing you can do about that other than delay the inevitable. He's going for one last desperate swing.
Yes, one last spite-filled Ricardo Montalban quoted swing of the Annihilator.
And a Lightning Shield then being played as well. So if he strikes back, he's going to take 2 nature damage. How unpleasant. Such a shame he couldn't really pull that earlier and pull out a Storm Strike combination. Might have evened the gap quite nicely.
Yes, it would have.
Hordak ends, and this is, of course, game over. There's absolutely nothing that Hordak can do, and Rathi has everything he can do right now. He could just pull a Mortal Strike out and end it right now. So I think we can quite officially say GG, good game on that one, with Rathi ending on a relatively healthy, but, well, let's face it, he could have done a little bit better, 13.
Yeah, he certainly, there's certainly some plays that he could have made that would have made the gap more. However, certainly safe and sound at 13 life.
I believe the Stronghold Gauntlets are actually the defining piece of equipment in that game. The only reason why the Crawl is still in play, although the True Silver Champion was available. So overall, in my opinion, exceedingly strong decks, in fact, from both combatants. I think Hordak was unfortunately unlucky with his card draw and perhaps could have managed his combos a little bit better there. Rathi, with what we thought was a selection of very poor pulls at the start, he was able to dump down a few cards face down that he didn't really need the use of. Allies not really coming into play either way, except for that Rack Sky Fury, what you could have considered the Warrior Wind Fury combination there for an obscene amount of damage in one combat round.
Yeah, that was big. That was one of the key plays of the game, definitely. It was very impressive to see Rathi come back from the early game situation that he was in to get the resources in play to get his items on the board, and with his 2 allies and the weapons and the weapon damage enhancing armor won the day.
Indeed, well, a arms warrior deck will always, of course, be based around that kind of idea, and Death Dealer Breastplate is a very solid option, with that Stronghold Gauntlets being something of a staple of anyone that would like to keep a hold of their weapon, because, of course, there are a lot of item destruction abilities these days, and pretty much all of them are common. So yeah, Stronghold Gauntlets being a very defining piece of equipment in that game. Hordak could have certainly done the damage. He was very unlucky to get that burn away early because it was the only one pulled in the game, so Rockbiter didn't stay on too long because that could have given him the early game advantage that he sorely needed and could have turned the tide on the game.
Yep, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
And it certainly looks like we're done here. This has been On the Cards WoW TCG edition with myself, TotalBiscuit.
And myself, Oxtail.
Indeed it has. Now, if you'd like to get involved in our WoW TCG play-by-plays, you can, of course, do so. Email themurloc@gmail.com. That is themurloc@gmail.com with the subject line, On the Cards WoW TCG. You will need a copy of the OCTGN online play client with the Dark Portal, Anixia's Lair, and Heroes of Azeroth expansions. Go to our forums at WCRadio.com. Click on our card games forum and you can find the full explanation of where and how to download and set yourself up for these games. That's again the Murloc@gmail.com to apply to play on the show. Feel free, and we hope you join us next time. Check out the rest of our shows at WCRadio.com. Click out our downloads page for our podcasts and archive downloads for any of our previous shows, and ensure to tune into our live shows. Check out our schedule on WCRadio.com/shows.php. I've been TotalBiscuit.
I've been Oxtail.
This has been On the Cards. Good night.